Welcome back to the channel, boys and girls. It's your homie Robbie Miles. And today we're talking about an early 2000s movie that has eluded me for a long, long time, and I finally just had the opportunity to watch it. Now I own this movie on two different in two different ways, two different formats. The first being on VHS, and the movie is Fear.com, of course. So I own it on VHS. Which is super cool. I have a super clean copy. And then, of course, the new Dark Star Blu-ray of Fear.com with that newly commissioned artwork and slip, which is super cool. Now, again, is this movie an early 2000s gem, or is this overlooked for good reason? Because I think there's a reason why I haven't seen this movie since its release in 2002, 22 years later. And if it was a bigger title, I feel like I would have seen it. But I knew about it, and I think a lot of people know about it, but I don't feel like it's been seen all that much by a lot of people. So is that for a good reason, or does this movie kind of slap and it's underrated? So that's what I'm going to give you guys my opinion on today. And so right off the bat, this movie was came out in 2002. You guys got to remember something. This was like one of the first real internet horror movies. Now, this is before the iPhone, guys. So this is the iPhone came out in 2004. So we're talking like the early days of the internet, like early. I mean, if you watch the movie, you get a sense of what the internet was like. For all youngins, but I remember it because I'm an old fart. But I watched the movie, and it's really fun to kind of it's kind of like a period piece, and it's fun to kind of look back and see the early 2000s for what it was. I was 16 when this movie came out, and again, I feel like it went largely unnoticed. It was a weird year for horror. Okay, 2002. It wasn't necessarily bad because you had some landmark films like The Ring, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. I absolutely adore The Ring, the American version by Gore Verbinski. But there were a lot of decent horror movies that came out that year, but it was just a weird year for horror. Again, it was like the rise of J horror. I always think that the early 2000s was like the weirdest time period for horror. And I was like a teen during those days, so I was really relying on the older kind of titles at that point. And then every once in a while that a gem would come out like The Ring. But I remember so that year 2002, like Cabin Fever came out, and I remember a bunch of my friends, about 5 or 6 of my friends, all slept at my house for my birthday, and we rented Cabin Fever from Blockbuster. And so I have such great memories of that time period of watching these horror movies like Cabin Fever and The Ring, and Eight-Legged Freaks, and these are like movies that have aged really well in my opinion, and it kind of built a cult following. But at the time, they were kind of they were okay. And I think I dug them as a kid, but they weren't really like big successes, big hits, I'd say. Anyway, so in 2002, you had 28 Days Later, you had Bubba Hotep, you had Cabin Fever, you had the Carrie remake, you had Dog Soldiers, you had Eight-Legged Freaks, you had The Eye, cool movie. You had Ghost Ship, which is arguably the greatest intro of any movie of all time. If you know, you know. And again, this next title, look no further than Halloween Resurrection to remember what a weird time period 2002 was. I mean, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry, but look no further than Jamie Lee getting deaded in the first scene. One of the most, probably, no, not probably, the most famous Scream Queen of all time dies in her star franchise in the opening seconds of the movie. Look no further than that to know that 2002 was a weird year for horror. Of course, she's resurrected later in 2018, but that's neither here. I'm sorry. Actually, in H2, did H2O come before Resurrection? I believe it did. So she gets resurrected later, no pun intended, in 2018, which I love. But you had Halloween Resurrection, you had The Grudge, the Japanese version, you had Killjoy 2, Full Moon, and then you had the American version of The Ring, which, in my opinion, was easily the best movie that came out that year. I'm a huge The Ring fan, but I am like keeping tabs on a claim sale on Instagram right now, so forgive me. So anyway, very weird year for horror. Early 2000s were very just bizarre. Again, not horrible, but just bizarre. And I think that time period has aged better than it had than it came out at the time. Again, because Fear.com specifically was, it was the kind of like the birth of internet horror, and no one really knew how to approach it. Now it's very prevalent, and now you can do all kinds of things. But at the time, it wasn't really a thing. So anyway, so Fear.com came out in 2002. It's a super cool movie. I'll start out with that. It is a movie that I had been wanting to see truly since 2002. And I think this the original cover art was one that like I vividly remember when I was a kid and going to the tape stores and things like that. It's pretty, I wouldn't say iconic because the movie's not iconic, but I think it's one of those movies that has aged really well, and I think that it's a fun movie that kind of like pushes boundaries that you didn't really at the time may not have felt natural to you, but now it kind of does. It feels like kind of outside the box thinking. It feels like it pushes the buttons a little bit. And I'll tell you why. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I'm going to talk about the plot a little bit. So if you want to know nothing about this movie, then turn this off now. But I promise you, I won't ruin the movie for you. It's a super fun movie. So anyway, so Fear.com, basically it's about it's a sci-fi horror crime investigation about a serial killer, mad scientist, that's all I'll say, who creates this website that when you look at it, you basically have 2 days to live, and in 2 days you die, and it kills you in your deepest and darkest fear. Concept alone, A+. I mean, that is a very cool concept for a movie. The other thing is, with this movie, they blur the lines on reality really well. This movie is fictional and it's horror, but they root it in like real life elements. Like it's supposedly created by a human, and so it's very cool the way they kind of explained what the website is and how it operates, kind of like a there's an energy that's created from the internet. And what's cool about that is it's kind of true, and not only is it kind of true, but it really like resonates, and it doesn't necessarily feel like it couldn't happen. It's based on the premise that the internet has created this evil energy that actually comes to life. And while it is fictional, and no, that hasn't happened in real life, it almost feels like it could eventually happen, or whatever the case might be. And that's why the movie kind of hit for me. It was way ahead of its time, in my opinion. And for me, that was like a really cool thing to watch. A movie that was so old, 22 years old, but felt way ahead of its time. So I think it aged really well. So Fear.com, want to see a really killer website. There's some gruesome scenes in this, and one scene in particular, with one death in particular with bugs, is all I'll say, really creeped me the fuck out. That's all I'll give you guys. And like there are some really fun scenes in it and really creepy and cool. The ending fell a little flat for me, that's all I'll say. But in thinking more about this, I mean, you got this great addition from Dark Star. There you have the original artwork, and I love that they did that. They gave you the original artwork on there, and then you have the newly commissioned on the slip. Really, really cool stuff. And what I love, what I yeah, again, like what I really love is they do the newly commissioned art on the slip, and then you get the original artwork on the actual Blu-ray, which is just awesome. So Fear.com, right? Is it an underrated gem, an early 2000s gem, or is it overlooked for a good reason? I'm gonna say this. I dug it, guys. I had been wanting to see this for a long, long time, and to be honest with you, I really dug it. I thought Fear.com was a great movie. I almost wish I watched it on VHS. But that's okay. Guys, I dug it a lot. It was super fun. Really, really cool movie. I think it's an underrated gem, guys. I think this movie does not get enough love. I think it's overlooked. And I don't think people recognize it enough. It's got Stephen Dorff, Natasha McElhone, who's a babe from the 90s. Once you see who she is, you'll know who I'm talking about. She was in was it Truman Show? Maybe I'm not sure. She was in one of those Jim Carrey movies, I think. Um, Babe. And she's great in this, and it's just fun, guys. It's a really fun movie, and really brings me back to that time period. It really is like a period piece. I'm not even joking with you. So fear.com, check it out. If you guys have seen this, let me know in the comments, because I dug it, and I feel like I've never spoken to anyone in my life about this movie, and so I'm really curious to hear what you guys think. If you guys have seen it, if you dig it, if you watched it for the first time now, if you saw it back in the theater, but this is the first time I saw it, guys, truly. So yeah, hit me up in the comments, guys. Let me know if you've seen Fear.com. Hit that like button, and I appreciate you guys hanging out, man. Next step is 200 subscribers. We're almost there, so I'll catch you guys later. This is your boy Miles out. Peace.